One of the most precious things on earth is a relationship between parent and child. As your child grows into their own adult person, we don't always see eye to eye. Angers flare up, and we stop talking to one another, holding a grudge. 400 Miles is a family drama written by Fabian and Maria Martin. It's a story about forgiveness. After vowing never to see his father again, Raoul drives across country at his sister's urging. It's my pleasure to introduce to you producer, writer Fabian Martin.
Called 400 Miles about a family and their son is gay, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, our film has been typecasted as a LGBTQ film, but I always try to correct people and tell them it's really a universal themed film. It's really the story is about forgiveness. It just happens that one of the characters is gay, so it's not a gay film. It's a film with gay characters. So I always want to make it a point to let people know that, even though we've won numerous awards in a lot of LGBTQ festivals with the film, so I'm not gonna turn down an award.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
It starts off with the actor there, the young man.
Eddie Martin, who played Raoul.
Raoul, yes, underwater.
Yes.
Interesting opening scene. It reminds me of somebody holding their breath. You know what I mean? Almost being like in a womb.
But it makes sense when you see how the film ends.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
When he takes his
Yeah.
last breath.
Yes.
I'm sorry, not his last breath, but.
Yeah.
It's. Out.
Yeah, it's like this. The character is he's carrying a lot with him. He's carrying the weight of the relationship, the estranged relationship he had with his father, and the end is an exhalation of it. He's exhaling all of that angst that he's been having all these years. The fact that all he's ever wanted in life was to be accepted, and that's kind of what that was the bookends of the story between him being underwater and then at the end where he lets out. He sees the little boy getting his shoe tied, and it just triggers a memory or the conversation he just had with his father in the hospital room. Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was a book?
No. It was not.
I heard you say it was the bookends with.
No. I'm talking about the beginning and the end are kind of bookends. It makes, like I said, it makes the opening make sense when you watch the last scene of the film.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the father was an alcoholic, which makes it worse. I know a lot of people can identify with that. I like the flashbacks and the fact that even though they're a flashback, when you go to the flashback, it's present. It's in the present moment. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're watching two films at once. Do you know what I mean? Like the present and the past.
You're talking about the flashbacks.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He did that so well. That was, the way you did it, it was really good. You know what I'm saying? When you
Right.
did that
Yeah.
towel and the toolbox.
Yeah. I got to give a lot of credit to our director, Felix Martiz, who's a good friend of mine. He's an amazing director and filmmaker. We went through a lot of different script changes to create those transitions between the present and the flashbacks. We wanted them to be almost seamless. So a lot of times you watch flashbacks in films and they kind of interrupt the flow of the film. So that explains the transitions. Like I said, with the blanket and with the coffee cup in the diner and in the toolbox. So it was very, very important that we did that. So the story, the film would have kind of a continuity to it, I guess is the right word.
A flow.
Yes, definitely.
Flow, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So what happens in the film is that his father's an alcoholic, and he never really got along with his father. The little boy you picked to play Raul was beautiful. Oh, what
Peter Cortez. He's an amazing actor, and you know, our little film launched his career. He's been all over TV now, so I'm really happy for him.
Really?
Yes,
well,
yeah.
with a face like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's beautiful. Oh, But more importantly, so like I was saying, the father and the son is estranged. The father's an alcoholic, and then one day, was it a Thanksgiving dinner or a regular dinner?
That was Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah.
And he said he just got up when he was a teenager, and he announced that he was gay. And the father told him to get out, which was horrible, you know, for him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm sure we all know somebody who's gay, and it's, even if you're not gay, you know what I'm saying, it's not a good thing to be, you know, not accepted, especially by the person who brought you into this world, which is your most important relationship.
We shot that scene the last day because we knew it was going to be very emotionally packed, and it was. I mean, everybody was so exhausted, just emotionally. There were so many tears. Even the camera guys, the crew behind the camera, they were in tears after that scene. It was so emotionally for everybody there. You know, it was yeah.
It has nothing to do with him for years and years, and then finally, he gets a call from his sister saying that his dad is sick, very seriously sick. And so he doesn't really even want to go because they never had that bond,
right?
Which is which I think a lot of people can identify with, unfortunately. And then his sister tells him, well, you know, I need you, you know, why don't you come down? So he decides to come down, and so he drives. Is he drive from? Is it from Arizona? Is that where he lived? Where he lived, Arizona, right?
Yeah, he's flying. He's driving from Arizona, which is about 400 miles from Tucson to California. That's where the title came from. We were juggling with the title, and my brother just kind of came up with it. He goes, "Call it 400 miles." So, it just kind of stuck with us. I said, "Oh, I like that title." So, yeah, and, you know, like you kind of alluded to, you know, the purpose of the journey was for him to reflect. Obviously, he was reluctantly making that journey. You know, at that point in his life, he didn't want anything to do with his father. But there was I guess you can call it guilt or maybe unfinished business on his behalf. You know, originally, if you recognize the arc of the character, you know, from the moment he left, he was bitter, he was angry. But as he made this journey and came across different people that kind of triggered memories of his childhood with his father, it kind of softened him by the end, where he was resigned to kind of, you know, have that last conversation with his father. And from the moment he walked into that hospital room, you can tell that he wanted to steer the direction of the conversation. But, you know, his father struck a nerve with him, you know, when, especially, you notice it in the character when his father says, "Bring your partner next time." And that's when he just kind of loses it. You can see him just melt. He actually sits down at that point. Before that, he was posturing. You know, he didn't even want to stand by his father's side. But as soon as he told him that, to him, that was all he ever wanted. You know, acceptance, and for him and his partner to be accepted. So.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that was that. I bawled at that scene. I watched it twice and I bawled both times.
You know, it's interesting. We screened it. The first place we screened it was in San Antonio, Texas, and I wasn't able to go. But I got somebody called me or texted me and said, "Everybody's crying in here." So everybody's in tears. And I go, great, that's the reaction that I wanted. And that's pretty much been the story at all the festivals we've been at. I've had people come up to my wife and I and crying and hugging us and saying thank you. You know, if anything, this film has opened the door for my father and I to have that conversation. We've had fathers show up with their gay sons to the film, and it's been very therapeutic for a lot of them. You know, if anything, that's what we want the film to do is to at least open that door for that conversation. And I'm happy to say that now we've had a lot of LGBTQ organizations approach us about, hey, can we use your film? And I said, absolutely, you know, absolutely, you can use our film. And they're using it now for their own format and their own purpose, to, especially when it comes to when you add the Latino element to it. You know, in the Latino culture, there is a double stigma. You know, you're supposed to be macho. You know, you're supposed to be manly. So when you couple those expectations with somebody coming out, it is a double stigma. So it's very difficult. But we're hoping that it will at least thaw that relationship between fathers and sons, so they can at least, you know, like I mentioned earlier, have that conversation with them.
So on his way there, they stop at like a mountain. No, actually, I'm sorry, that's my mistake. On his way there, he sees somebody on the side of the road, and it's somebody who's broken down, and he pulls over to help them.
Yeah.
A stranger.
Yeah.
And in that scene, the guy asks for a screwdriver. Well, you know, he stares into the. No, I'm sorry, that was when he was a kid. The guy asks him for a screwdriver, and he says, yeah, sure, I have one. And they get to talking, and he talks about the dog, is it? The evil versus the good dog.
Yes. That was me. So, you know, the stranger on the side of the road, that was played by Tony Collins, who's also an amazing character actor. You know, his whole role, it was important for us to create that character because he, in a sense, was on his way to go see his own kids, if you remember, and he was off to see his kids. And, you know, they have that moment where he says to him, you know, he mentions, I'm just passing through. And he goes, well, maybe, you know, I'm paraphrasing what I wrote. It's been a while since I wrote it, but we're seeing the film. But he says, you know, sometimes we have to stop what we're doing and recognize what's in front of us, in a sense, instead of just passing through life. That was kind of the gist of that character. That's why we create. And plus, I put Tony in all my films, so I always create a character for him because he's so good. He is so good at everything he does. So he's like my Michael Caine. So,
Really?
Yeah, I put him in all my films. So
Nice.
yeah, he's great. So I created that character for him.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that was like an irony that he was going to see his children, and then the Raul was going to see his father. So it works both ways. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That was kind of an irony.
Well, that was the whole point. Like if you notice, every character that Raul comes across on his journey back home, they dropped a little jewel of knowledge to him that really opened him up to being more receptive to talking to his father. And if you realize also, every character he came across was talking or referring to a relationship themselves, whether it was the guy on the side of the road that was talking about going to see his kid, the waitress in the diner who was talking about her past relationships with men. Even real subtle ones, like when he walks into the hospital for the first time, the receptionist is on the phone and she's squabbling with her parents about inviting her boyfriend to a family event. You know, those are little subtleties in the film, but they all had a purpose. You know, and that, you know, sometimes we need to kind of put our egos aside and or in other words, better said, sometimes we need to take our judge robes off and not be so judgmental. Be more open to each other, to ideas, and things of that sort. I mean, again, who are we to judge? Nobody's born with a judge's robe on. So that was kind of the purpose of those characters.
It's hard being parents. I'm sympathizing with the parents right now because I have teenagers. I saw that scene, and the secretary on the phone, she was saying to her mother, "Mom, my life is not your life." I mean, my daughters actually said that to me. But it's so iconic, it's not even funny, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Oh, and his sister plays an important role in
Yes.
this as well. I think it was very poignant when she told him, look, you're no better than he is because you ignore him and you avoid him. So you hate you're no better than he is. I thought that was a great point.
Yes, and that character is modeled after my wife because she is the sister, and she is very much like that. Even though she is the baby of her family, she is the adult. She's the one everybody turns to all the time in the family. She's very strong, very sharp and honest with her words, even though you might not like them. She's going to tell you the truth. She's going to tell you the truth up front. And so she's always had that relationship with her brother. She was always her brother's protector. Even to this day, she still is. He's the one that will call her, ask for advice, ask her what she thinks about things, and because he knows he's going to get an honest answer from her. And she's not going to beat around the bush. She's going to tell it like it is. So we wanted to really capture that in the character.
And ultimately, I think the film achieves what it sets out to do, which is to make you think of your relationship with your parents and, rethink how you want your relationship with your kids. Intern.
Right.
So it ultimately, I think it's set out what it achieves to do. Like you said, forgiveness is the ultimate.
Yeah, and again, just the way we started this conversation, I made a point that, again, this is not a gay film, it's a film with a gay character. So I encourage a lot of, afterwards, afterwards people ask you about the film and the Q&As, and I challenge people in the audience and said, hey, if you haven't talked to somebody in years, for whatever reason, you're holding a grudge, whatever that grudge is, pick up the phone. It takes a bigger person to say, I'm sorry. It really does. A lot of people think it's a sign of weakness. I think it's a sign of strength for you to be able to forgive somebody. It's very liberating for both people, for both parties. And that was really our intent in the film. And sure enough, I got emails from a lot of people that said, hey, I picked up a phone, I talked to my dad for the first time in 10 years, or I talked to my mom for the first time, or I talked to a brother, a sister, and in the end, that was kind of the intent. That's what we wanted to make happen. So.
Right, and that's a wonderful thing to use art as a teacher.
Yes.
To mirror life back. That's a great thing that you achieved there. And it'll be going to the Arlington International Film Festival in October, the end of October.
Actually, it played last year. It was in last year's festival. Yes.
Okay, my mistake.
Yeah.
Did you go?
I didn't get a chance to go. I'm a school teacher by day, so it's tough for me. I teach, believe it or not, I teach economics.
Oh my Lord! Don't ask me anything.
Which is interesting because I've won a lot of writing awards, and my students say, "Why aren't you teaching writing? I mean, why aren't you teaching writing?" And I go, I've asked myself that many times also. I'm kind of I'm self-taught. I never went to film school. I just, I've always had a love for writing, and I really didn't start taking it seriously until about probably 3 or 4 years ago. And, just since 400 Miles, I just shot another film this summer that's coming out called History Day. I have another film in the festival film circuit right now called The Closet, which is an 8-minute film, and it was actually played in New York last night. And I'm working really hard to do my first feature film. So hopefully by this next summer, I did a kind of a faith-based film called Den of Wolves, which I just found out 2 days ago. I won the Christian Film Festival in Virginia for best screenplay. So
that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to.
What is that about? What is the Den of Wolves about?
Den of Wolves is about a taxi driver, kind of a middle-aged taxi driver who, he's just had a very difficult life. A lot his own fault. He's had a troubled marriage. His own kids don't respect him. He has a dead-end job. He's driving a cab because he can't keep a job. And on one particular night, he's already resigned to go home. It's been a slow night, but 3 guys stop him and say, "Hey, would you give us a ride?" And he says, "Sure." Little does he know they're 3 escaped convicts. That in essence, he doesn't realize it yet, but they've kind of taken him hostage. So basically, they make him drive them up to a remote part of the desert, and they're holed up in a hotel room for 3 days. And the whole movie takes place in that one room where the 3 convicts are fighting and haggling over what they're going to do with him. Are they going to kill him? Are they going to let him go? And he has to sit there and listen to these heated conversations. At that point, he's pretty much at their mercy, but the one tool that he has is his faith. So what he starts doing as the story develops is he's slowly winning them over through his faith. Right? He's convincing them that they shouldn't do what they think they want to do, and he uses faith as his only weapon. So, the log line of the story is the only thing that prevails in the dark is the light. So, that's kind of the message of the story. This guy who had given up on his faith because his life is just so horrible, at the end clings onto that very thing that he has pushed back on for so many years. So that's kind of the premise of the story. Yeah.
Wow, sounds awesome. And what is it that you hope to do? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'm hoping to actually shoot the film, to actually make the film. And as an independent filmmaker, you have to be real creative in terms of how to make a film. Financing is always the biggest issue. So, you do crowdfunding, you tap into your own personal resources, you ask friends for favors. So, you do whatever you can, and you just try to make things happen. You wear a lot of hats, so. My wife is very instrumental. My wife is amazing in providing. Not only is she an amazing writer, but she really takes care of the cast and crew. She's an amazing cook, and I found out that a well-fed cast is a happy cast. So, so. That's basically our MO. That's how we go about getting these projects done.
Nice. Is there any, can somebody look it up, look 400 Miles up on Vimeo? Do you know what I'm saying? Or anything? We're gonna be putting it up really soon. Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, when it is, I'll hit you up. I'll send you a text or something and let you know. But it should be up on Vimeo real soon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love the film, and I thought it it was beautiful. Get your tissues out.
Yes,
But
yes.
I more love what it was about and what it reminds us of how important.
Yes.
The basics. Let's get back to the fundamentals of relationship.
Yes, yeah, and it's about people, and I like to write films about people, and I like to write films about people that are flawed. I think people that have no problems are boring. So I really do that. I mean, I really do. I think flawed people are interesting. And I like human stories. I like people like that. So when I'm walking down the street or if I'm writing, on a subway or something, if you open your eyes wide enough, there's narratives flying at you from all directions. And as a writer, that's all I need. I can see a person and they'll spark an idea, or I'll read something in the paper that will spark an idea. But that's what I find interesting. Just open your eyes and there's stories coming around from all directions. So.
And I just want to say my favorite scene in the movie is the part where he pictured, where the little boy Raul smiles when he sees the father tying the shoelace, and then he's happy as a little boy.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part in the whole film.
I'm glad. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Bernadette.
You're welcome. You have a great weekend.
Peace. Take care, everybody.
Yep, you too.
Bye.